From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. Radyo Pilipinas World Service can also be heard on shortwave broadcast through the shortwave facilities of the United States Agency for Global Media or Voice of America on the following shortwave frequencies: 15.640 MHz, 17.750 MHz, and 21.720 MHz. I'm your host, Leo Magpayo, and this is Dateline Malacañang in Review. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday visited fire survivors staying at the Delpan Sports Complex and Delpan Evacuation Center in Barangay 272, San Nicolas, assuring families that government assistance will continue following the massive blaze that displaced thousands over the weekend. Speaking directly to residents, the president said he wanted to personally ensure that all affected families were receiving the support they need. The fire, which erupted on May 24th, affected 2,134 families, many of whom lost their homes and belongings as flames rapidly swept through the community. Despite the devastation, residents expressed gratitude for the president's visit and welcomed his assurance of sustained government support. The Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, immediately mobilized relief operations, distributing food packs, hygiene kits, sleeping kits, cooking kits, and 10,000 pesos in cash aid per family to help survivors begin rebuilding their lives. The National Housing Authority, or NHA, committed an additional 30,000 pesos per family for the construction of new homes, while the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, or DSUD, pledged to provide construction materials. An extra 5,000 pesos in assistance will also be released through the Office of the President. Authorities continue to assess the full extent of the damage as recovery efforts move forward.
Dumaan lang po ako sandali dito sa inyo upang tiyakin na lahat ng pangangailangan ninyo, lahat ng tulong na ibibigay ng pamahalaan ay natatanggap ninyo. Dahil po alam naman natin, kapag ganyan ang nangyari, nagkasunog at nawalan kayo ng tirahan, dapat talaga ang pamahalaan ang magsasaklolo sa inyo. At kaya po, andito po ang DSWD, andito po ang ating mga iba't ibang ahensya ng pamahalaan. At siyempre, kasama po natin ang ating local government ng City of Manila, lungsod ng Maynila, na sabay-sabay kami na naghahanap ng paraan na magtumulong. Kaya't nandiyan po, galing po sa national government, meron po tayong hygiene kit, meron pa po tayong family cooking kit, meron pa po tayong binibigay na food pack, at bukod pa ron yung 10,000 na assistance para meron po kayong magamit na pera. Ang susunod po, pagkatapos po na makuha po namin lahat ng mga detalye ninyo, ang susunod po, patuloy po, hindi po kami titigil ng pagbigay ng pagkain at lahat ng assistance at lahat itong mga kit na nakikita ninyo. Wala pong tigil yan, ay tuloy-tuloy po namin gagawin yan. At ang susunod ay ang DSUD, yung housing, yung Department of Housing, para mabigyan kayo ng mga building material para makapagpatayo ulit kayo ng inyong magiging tirahan. Kaya sana po ay kahit na na medyo mahirap ngayon, asahan po ninyo, hindi po aalis ang pamahalaan, hindi po aalis ang DSWD, hindi po aalis ang lungsod ng Maynila. Andito po si Chorme at hindi po aalis hanggang kayo ay handa nang makauwi ulit at mamuhay ulit ng normal. Nandito lang po kami, asahan po ninyo.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday inspected the ongoing rehabilitation of the Sunog Apog pumping station in Manila, a key flood control facility that had remained idle for 6 years despite being inaugurated in 2020. The pumping station is part of the Blumentritt Interceptor System, which serves flood-prone communities in Manila and parts of Quezon City. The president said he wanted to personally confirm that the long-delayed repairs were finally completed. President Marcos noted that the facility never became operational due to design flaws and repeated clogging caused by heavy garbage accumulation. The rehabilitation, which began in November, included the replacement of burned-out electrical components, pipe cleaning, and extensive desiltation inside the station and along the river channel. The chief executive said the improvements were immediately evident during a test run, where just one pump operating at half capacity lowered water levels by about a foot. With the upgrades, 3 of the station's 4 pumps are now fully functional ahead of the rainy season. The remaining bay continues to support gravity flow operations.
Kaya tayo nandito para makita kung talagang naayos na. Dahil mula nung in-inaugurate ito, binuksan ito, noong 2020, ay ni minsan hindi gumana ito. It has never worked at all for 6 years. So, tinrabaho natin ito mula nung November. Sinimula nung November. Ngayon, pwede na pinalitan yung mga electrical equipment, lininis lahat ng mga tubo, nag-desiltation sila doon sa ilog, pati rito sa loob, para naman mabawasan yung basura. Dahil ang nangyari, madalas na mangyari, pag nabara ng basura yung bomba, siyempre, may ipit yun, nasusunog yung mga electrical equipment. Kaya pinaltan lahat at inayos na mabuti para naman after 6 years, 2020 ito, inaugurate. After 6 years lang, naging maayos ulit. Naging maayos, never naging maayos ngayon. Ngayon lang naging maayos para umandar ulit. Ito, umaandar ito. Sinasabi nila sa akin, pag umandar ito, umaandar 5 minutes. Tapos barado na. Kaya merong kaunting problema sa pagka-design. Kaya inayos natin lahat. Kaya mabuti na lang dahil ang laki, lalo na itong area na ito sa likod ninyo. Itong area na ito, malalim yan eh. Kaya mabilis mabaha. Ngunit nung inon namin, yung isang bomba, isa pa lang yun eh, di ba? Out of the 3.
50% capacity pa.
At yung isang bomba lang, at pinatakbo namin at 50% capacity, kitang-kita, ang laki ng binabana ng tubig. Siguro mga 1 foot, mga 12 inches ang binabana na kagad ng tubig. Wala pa yun, 1 pump at 50%. Kaya kahit malaki ang tubig, malaking maibabawas sa ating mga kababayan na kanilang dating nababahan na lugar.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. left Manila on Tuesday for a 4-day state visit to Japan, where the Philippines expects to seal new economic and defense agreements. The presidential plane departed Villamor Air Base at 1:36 in the afternoon. President Marcos said the visit comes at a crucial time as Manila and Tokyo deepen their strategic partnership amid growing regional and global challenges. This is his first state visit to Japan following earlier trips in 2023 and 2025. The president said the mission aims to strengthen political ties, boost security cooperation, and expand long-term economic partnerships, especially as both countries mark the normalization of diplomatic relations established in 1956. President Marcos will meet with Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi to discuss economic and security coordination and witness the signing of key agreements on trade, investment, and maritime cooperation. He will also push cooperation in agriculture, energy, infrastructure, defense, space technology, and Mindanao development. Japan remains one of the Philippines' strongest economic and defense partners, supporting major infrastructure projects and military cooperation through agreements like the Reciprocal Access Agreement. President Marcos said he will also raise Philippine priorities on the West Philippine Sea, the Middle East conflict, Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN cooperation, relations with the United States, and the country's bid for a United Nations Security Council seat. The chief executive, joined by his economic team, will meet Japanese business leaders and later engage with the Filipino community in Japan.
This state visit to Japan is essential amid an increasingly challenging and evolving global environment. It forms part of a broader foreign policy agenda to forge closer political ties, stronger defense and security cooperation, and more enduring economic partnerships with major countries in the region in order to advance the interests of the Filipino people while promoting regional peace, stability, and prosperity. During this trip, I hope to harness the positive trajectory of our relations with Japan in all of our enriching engagements. This administration is keen on working closely with Japan and bringing our strengthened strategic partnership to greater heights. I will be advancing Philippine priorities, and we will discuss where future synergies and complementary interests converge with those of Japan in the West Philippine Sea, the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, in ASEAN, our cooperation also with the United States, and the Philippines' candidature to the United Nations Security Council. The Prime Minister and I also expect to witness the signing and exchange of important agreements in trade and investment. We will also be announcing key bilateral initiatives in security and maritime cooperation. I believe we can further expand our security, economic, and development cooperation in order to enhance our national defense posture and to uplift the standard of living of Filipinos in different parts of the country.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. assured Filipinos in Japan that the government will continue protecting the rights and welfare of overseas Filipino workers or OFWs, calling them a vital force in strengthening Philippine-Japan relations. Speaking before the Filipino community in Tokyo, President Marcos thanked workers across Japan's factories, offices, schools, hotels, hospitals, and construction sites, describing them as the face of the Philippines and a key link in deepening cooperation between the two countries. The president said his 4-day state visit aims to boost collaboration in labor protection, trade, defense, and regional cooperation, coinciding with the 70th anniversary of normalized diplomatic ties. President Marcos also acknowledged global challenges, including rising oil prices due to the Middle East conflict, citing government measures such as the National Energy Emergency and the Uplift Program. Despite these pressures, he said, cooperation between Manila and Tokyo remains strong. The chief executive paid tribute to longtime Filipino residents and the 350,000-strong Filipino community in Japan, expressing confidence they will continue to excel in various fields. President Marcos Jr. urged young Filipinos to embrace opportunities while staying rooted in their identity, saying integration into Japanese society should not mean losing one's Filipino heritage.
Nitong mga nakaraang buwan, nabatid natin ang agaran at matindi na epekto sa Pilipinas ng krisis sa ibang panig ng daigdig. Ilang linggo lamang mula nang sumiklab ang gulo sa gitnang silangan, naramdaman natin ang pagsipa ng presyo ng mga bilihin, dulot ng pagtaas ng presyo ng langis. Kaagad naman tumugon ang inyong pamahalaan at pinairal ang State of National Energy Emergency. Ipinatupad natin ang Unified Package for Livelihood, Industry, Food, and Transport o tawag ay UPLIFT program kung saan nagsanib-puwersa ang buong pamahalaan. Mapigilan ang pag-hoarding ng langis para ma-optimize ang ating mga fuel at kaagad na pagkakaabot ng tulong para sa mga nawalan ng hanapbuhay sa lahat ng industriya, sa transportasyon, sa kasiguruhan ng pagkain. Pinatunayan din ng krisis na hindi maibubukod ang Pilipinas sa epekto ng pagkakaantala ng supply ng langis. At walang bansang kayang lutasin ang krisis ng enerhiya ngayon na nag-iisa. Bagamat pareho nating pinagdadaanan ng hamon na dala ng kakulangan ng supply ng enerhiya, hindi napatid ang pagtutulungan ng ating dalawang bansa upang maibsan ang hirap na naramdaman ng taong bayan. Bago pa man kami makikipagpulong sa mga pinuno ng Japan, minarapat naming unahin ang pagkikipagkita sa inyo, sapagkat kayo ang dahilan kung bakit mahalaga ang relasyon ng Pilipinas at Japan. Kayo ang nagbibigay buhay sa ugnayang ito sa gitna nga ng Pilipinas at ng Japan. Napakahalaga para sa amin na ipabatid sa inyo na ang inyong pamahalaan ay walang tigil at walang sawang nagsisikap upang mapangalagaan ang inyong mga karapatan, kapakanan at kaligtasan habang kayo ay naghahanap buhay sa ibayong dagat. It is my fervent hope that you succeed in all your endeavors in your chosen careers, whether it be business, the arts, professional arena, the service sector, or in sports. I urge you to make a good account of yourselves and be proud of your heritage as Filipinos. We all agree that living in Japan requires a delicate balance. Japan is a nation of profound tradition, structure, and etiquette. For us to thrive here, we need to be masters of the art of integration. We must respect the local laws, embrace the culture, and learn the language. However, integration does not mean assimilation. It does not mean forgetting your roots and abandoning who you truly are. Our greatest asset is our unique identity. Let your Filipino heritage emanate from you in your daily interactions while still being mindful of social norms. And watch it enrich your social environment and spheres of influence.
I was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. says Philippine-Japan relations are set to reach their highest level yet, with both countries preparing to establish a Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, or CSP. Speaking before the Japan-Philippines Parliamentary Friendship League, or JPPFL, in Tokyo, President Marcos said the planned upgrade reflects the deep trust between Manila and Tokyo amid shifting geopolitical and economic conditions. He noted that the milestone comes as the two nations mark 70 years of normalized diplomatic ties, a relationship he described as one built on reconciliation and shared purpose. President Marcos also highlighted Japan's unmatched development assistance to the Philippines, particularly in Mindanao. The chief executive underscored the need for stronger cooperation in economic and maritime security, defense, trade, and investment, as well as emerging sectors such as clean energy, digital transformation, critical minerals, artificial intelligence, and space technology. He reaffirmed Japan's growing role in promoting peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific and emphasized Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN's central role in shaping an open and rules-based regional order. President Marcos also thanked Japanese lawmakers for their continued support in advancing bilateral ties. The Philippine president is set to address a joint session of Japan's National Diet and meet Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi on Thursday to further expand cooperation.
This year, the Philippines and Japan commemorate the 70th anniversary of the normalization of our diplomatic relations, a milestone that reflects not only the passage of time, but also the depth of reconciliation, trust, and shared purpose that we have carefully built together over the past 7 decades. In this journey, the JPPFL has played a vital role. As parliamentarians, you help ensure that our democratic values are translated into laws and policies that serve our peoples and the broader region. For the Philippines, and I believe for Japan as well, this moment calls not for retreat nor hesitation, but for deeper engagement with one another and with like-minded partners around the world. It is in this context that the Philippines and Japan are moving to elevate our relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership, the highest tier in our diplomatic framework and a first for the Philippines. Japan's contributions to regional security strengthen our collective peace and resilience across the region. Equally significant are Japan's initiatives in advancing economic security, especially in strengthening supply chains, promoting technological innovation while ensuring that new advancements are used ethically and responsibly for the good of humanity, and safeguarding critical industries in an interconnected and an interdependent global economy. We are most appreciative and encouraged by Japan's active participation in deepening regional cooperation, particularly through its dialogue partnership with ASEAN. As we navigate shifting currents, the friendship between the Philippines and Japan continues to evolve and to grow stronger. We look forward to working with the JPPFL as we take it to even greater heights.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippines has secured $3.4 billion in new investment pledges from major Japanese companies following a high-level business roundtable led by President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. in Tokyo on Wednesday. The commitments were announced during the president's meeting with top Japanese executives at the Imperial Hotel, which the Presidential Communications Office or PCO described as a strong vote of confidence in the administration's economic agenda. According to the PCO, the combined pledges, roughly 210 billion pesos, are expected to boost industrial capacity, generate thousands of specialized jobs, and strengthen long-term economic growth through upgraded supply chains, tourism infrastructure, and technology transfer. The roundtable formed part of President Marcos's 4-day state visit to Japan, aimed at deepening trade, investment, and industry linkages with one of the Philippines' largest economic partners. Addressing Japan's leading conglomerates and financial institutions, President Marcos called for a more integrated and resilient economic partnership amid global supply chain disruptions and energy market volatility. He thanked long-standing Japanese investors including Toyota, Mitsubishi, Marubeni, Panasonic, All Nippon Airways, and Fast Retailing. President Marcos said the Philippines is aligning infrastructure, industry, finance, human capital, and connectivity to support long-term expansion, with trade and tourism positioned as core drivers of growth. He assured Japanese partners of continued reforms to improve institutional efficiency and investment stability. The chief executive is in Tokyo for a state visit focused on strengthening political ties, defense cooperation, economic partnerships, and people-to-people exchanges between Manila and Tokyo.
The Philippines is pursuing a clear national direction, building an economy where infrastructure, industry, finance, human capital, and connectivity move together as one system of growth. And increasingly, we recognize that trade and tourism will be among the most important engines of that growth. Because true development does not happen in isolation. It happens when the entire economy moves in coordination. When infrastructure opens doors, when industry creates opportunity, when finance unlocks ambition, when human capital drives productivity, when connectivity brings people, markets, and ideas together. And when trade expands, the flow of goods and services, tourism expands the flow of people, culture, and investment, growth becomes not only faster, but deeper, more inclusive, and more enduring. In this sense, trade and tourism are not supporting sectors. They are core drivers of economic expansion in the Philippines as we move forward. Japanese companies have long been part of the Philippine story. But today, I want to say this clearly. You are no longer just investors in our economy. You are the builders of our economy. To all our Japanese partners, you know the Philippines not from reports, but from your own experience. You know our people. We are resilient in adversity, ambitious in opportunity, and increasingly connected to global trade and tourism flows. So as we look ahead, let this be our shared message to the world, that Japan and the Philippines are not only partners in history, we are partners in the future. In a time of uncertainty, we choose stability. In a time of fragmentation, we choose cooperation. In a time of hesitation, we will build. The future is not something that we inherit, it is something that we create. Together, Japan and the Philippines will create a future defined not by limitation, but by possibility.
As Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. underscored the vital role of strong Philippine-Japan relations in safeguarding stability and prosperity across the Indo-Pacific during a state banquet hosted by Emperor Naruhito and Empress Masako at the Imperial Palace in Tokyo. President Marcos reaffirmed Manila's commitment to deepening its strategic partnership with Tokyo, saying both nations share a responsibility to uphold peace, international law, and a rules-based maritime order. The president described the more than 7-decade-long bilateral relationship as one of the most dynamic and forward-looking partnerships in the region, strengthened by shared values, mutual trust, and a common vision for development. President Marcos noted that cooperation between the two countries continues to expand, from maritime security and humanitarian response to energy and food security, digital transformation, emerging technologies, climate action, and space cooperation. The chief executive thanked Japan for its long-standing support to the Philippines, saying people-to-people ties have further deepened the bond between Filipinos and Japanese. President Marcos also highlighted Japan's consistent solidarity during moments of need, saying the friendship between the two nations has been built not only by governments but by generations who chose understanding, partnership, and shared purpose. The Philippine president is in Tokyo for a 4-day state visit aimed at strengthening political, defense, economic, and cultural cooperation between Manila and Tokyo.
For over 70 years, wave after wave of people-to-people engagement and wide-ranging collaboration have collectively transformed our bilateral relationship into one of the most vibrant and forward-looking partnerships in the Indo-Pacific. Rooted in shared values, strengthened by mutual trust and meaningful cooperation, and guided by a common vision for peace, prosperity, and development. Whether in seasons of abundance or of hardship, Japan has consistently stood shoulder to shoulder with the Filipino people, extending solidarity and assistance at the right moments to reassure us that we have a friend that we can always count on. The Philippines remains committed to working closely with Japan to harness our intensifying strategic partnership as a force for good, not only for our two countries, but also for the broader Indo-Pacific region.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippines and Japan have officially elevated their bilateral ties to a comprehensive strategic partnership, or CSP, the highest level in Manila's diplomatic framework, marking a major milestone in the two nations' 70 years of normalized relations. The announcement came after President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi met in Tokyo on Thursday, sealing what both sides described as a reflection of the exceptional trust and expanding cooperation between the two countries. President Marcos said the upgraded partnership strengthens joint efforts to address fast-changing regional and global challenges, building on decades of collaboration in security, economic development, and emerging technologies. Several new agreements were signed during the visit, including a revised avoidance of double taxation agreement to boost cross-border investments, as well as expanded cooperation in agriculture, fisheries, health services, human resource development, space technology, artificial intelligence, energy security, and supply chain resilience. Both sides also agreed to begin formal negotiations on key defense and security arrangements, including a General Security of Military Information Agreement that would allow the sharing of classified defense data and enhance interoperability between their security forces. Manila and Tokyo likewise pushed for the start of talks on maritime boundary delimitation, a move seen as reinforcing mutual trust and supporting a rules-based maritime order in the region. President Marcos said these steps will further strengthen defense cooperation and deepen strategic alignment as both nations confront geopolitical tensions and economic uncertainties. The president's 4-day state visit to Japan coincides with the 70th anniversary of the normalization of diplomatic ties between the two countries, which first elevated relations to a strengthened strategic partnership in 2015.
As we commemorate the 70th anniversary of the normalization of diplomatic relations between our two countries, I am pleased to announce that we have elevated our relationship from a strengthened strategic partnership to a comprehensive strategic partnership. This milestone reflects the strength, depth, and breadth of our ties as we respond to the evolving challenges and opportunities of our time. Our discussions reaffirmed our commitment to further advance cooperation across key areas, including economic partnership, energy resilience, decarbonization, cooperation in defense and security, maritime matters, as well as emerging and future-oriented sectors. We had meaningful exchanges on regional and global issues, including challenges that are now emerging in the Indo-Pacific region, and of course the developments in the Middle East and their impact on energy security. We appreciate Japan's expressions of support for the Philippines' chairship of ASEAN this year and for ASEAN's unity and centrality. Today, we also witnessed the signing of an important agreement on the avoidance of double taxation, which will enhance the business environment and promote greater cross-border investment. The Philippines and Japanese governments have likewise forged new arrangements that will expand our cooperation in the agricultural and fisheries sector, improve equitable access to quality health services, and continue our long-standing partnership in our human resource development. In addition, we will advance our cooperation in space development and application, artificial intelligence, energy security, and supply chain resilience. Lastly, we jointly announced the commencement of the negotiations for the General Security of Military Information Agreement, as well as for the delimitation of our maritime borders. These are very important steps to further strengthen our defense cooperation and to uphold a rules-based maritime order.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Thursday called for the steadfast defense of international law, maritime security, and a rules-based order in the Indo-Pacific as he delivered a historic address before Japan's National Diet. Speaking before lawmakers during his 4-day state visit, President Marcos described the Philippines and Japan as maritime democracies, bound by a shared responsibility to keep regional waters open, secure, and governed by rules, not coercion. Both nations face persistent maritime pressures from China, whose expansive claims cover the entire South China Sea, including areas within the West Philippine Sea, and extend to the Japan-controlled Senkaku Islands in the East China Sea. President Marcos said the Philippines-Japan relationship has transformed from post-war reconciliation into a strategic partnership anchored on deep mutual trust, recalling former President Elpidio Quirino's push for reconciliation that paved the way for normalized ties in 1956. This year marks the 70th anniversary of that milestone.
The relationship between the Philippines and Japan is, at its core, a story of transformation, from reconciliation to deep mutual trust. After the war, President Elpidio Quirino chose the path of reconciliation, guided by the belief that, after all, destiny has made us neighbors. We made peace with the past, and so, on July 23, 1956, the Philippines and Japan normalized diplomatic relations. Japan's reparations became the starting point of a partnership that steadily built confidence and goodwill. 70 years after reconciliation, we have reached a point where mutual trust is no longer just a result of our partnership. It is the very force that drives our relations above and beyond. As this trust reaches new heights, it gives us both the confidence and the means to work together towards peace, prosperity, and explore possibilities. Today's more interconnected and interdependent economies and societies have brought not only unprecedented opportunity, but also new vulnerabilities, as disruptions in one part of the world ripples across many others. Yet it is in this same moment that human ingenuity, driven in large part by advances in technology, offers us the means to address today's challenges. And paramount among these challenges is the preservation of peace. Peace is the foundation upon which our shared prosperity is built and from which new possibilities can emerge. From the ashes of war, the Philippines and Japan chose reconciliation over division and cooperation over indifference. That choice continues to define our partnership till today.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service can be heard over the following shortwave frequencies: 15.640 MHz, 17.750 MHz, and 21.720 MHz. Radyo Pilipinas World Service is also live over our sister station, The Capital 104.3 FM, as well as on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our post as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang in Review. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.